The small ship dropped through the orange clouds of Cathari Prime like a falling leaf. Inside, Alana Vasquez sat alone, her hands folded in her lap. She watched the alien world grow larger through the window. Mountains of black rock stretched across the land below. Rivers of something that looked like molten metal cut through valleys. It was not a pretty world. It was a world built for war. Elena was 53 years old. She had gray in her dark hair and lines around her eyes from years of smiling. Back on Earth, she had been a teacher. She had taught history to children who fidgeted in their seats and dreamed of lunch. She had never fired a weapon. She had never commanded soldiers. She had never even left her own solar system until Ashtu. 6 months ago. Now she was humanity's last hope. The ship shook as it entered the lower atmosphere. Elena did not grip her seat or close her eyes. She simply watched and waited. Fear was there, somewhere deep in her chest, but she had made peace with it long ago. Fear was just another feeling. It could not control her unless she let it. The pilot's voice came through the speaker. "Ambassador, we are approaching the landing zone. The Varokian escort is waiting." "Thank you," Elena said. Her voice was calm and warm, the same voice she had used to explain ancient wars to 12-year-olds. "Please tell them I am ready." The ship touched down with a soft bump. Through the window, Elena saw them for the first time. The Varokians. They stood in perfect lines, hundreds of them, their scaled bodies covered in black armor that seemed to drink the light. Each one stood over 8 feet tall. Their heads were like dragons from old Earth stories, with long snouts filled with teeth and eyes that glowed like hot coals. They held weapons that hummed with energy, weapons that could cut a human in half with a single shot. Elena stood up, smoothed her simple gray dress, and walked to the door. The ramp lowered. Hot air rushed in, carrying the smell of sulfur and something metallic. Elena stepped out into the alien sunlight. 2 suns hung in the sky, one red and one white, casting strange double shadows on the ground. The Varokian soldiers watched her. They did not move. They did not speak. They simply stared at this small, soft creature who had come to their world. Elena knew what they saw. A weak thing. A fragile thing. Something that could be broken with a single blow. She smiled at them. It was a genuine smile. Warm and friendly. The kind of smile she gave to nervous students on their first day of school. The soldiers shifted slightly. They had never seen a creature smile at them before. Usually, other species trembled. They begged. They wept. They did not smile. A larger Varokian stepped forward. His armor was decorated with golden symbols that marked him as an officer. "Human," he growled. His voice was like rocks grinding together. "You will follow. The Warlord waits." "Of course," Elena said. "Lead the way." They walked through the military complex. Everywhere Elena looked, she saw weapons, soldiers, and machines of war. Ships that could burn entire cities. Tanks that could crush mountains. The Varokian Dominion had conquered 43 star systems. They had destroyed species that had existed for millions of years. They had never known defeat, and they had turned their eyes toward Earth. 6 months ago, their fleet had appeared at the edge of human space. They had sent one message: surrender or die. Humanity had tried to fight. The first battle had lasted 4 hours. Humanity lost 30 ships. The Varokians lost none. So the leaders of Earth had asked for a meeting. They had asked for one chance to negotiate. The Varokians had agreed, but only to make an example. They wanted the galaxy to watch humanity kneel. The Great War Hall was larger than any building Elena had ever seen. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into shadow. Massive pillars lined the walls, each one carved with scenes of Varokian victories. Between the pillars stood soldiers. Thousands of them. 10,000 warriors in perfect formation, their weapons ready, their eyes fixed on the small human woman walking between them. At the far end of the hall sat the throne. It was made of bones. White bones, gray bones, bones of every color and size, all fused together into a terrible seat. The bones of conquered species. The bones of kings and queens and generals who had thought they could resist the dominion. And on that throne sat Thrax the Sunderadad. He was the largest Varrokian Elena had seen. His scales were deep red, almost black, and old scars crossed his face like a map of violence. His eyes burned brighter than the others, and when he saw Elena approaching, his mouth stretched into something that might have been a smile. It showed all his teeth. "So," he said, and his voice echoed through the great hall like thunder. "This is what humanity sends. One female. No weapons. No guards." He leaned forward on his throne of bones. "I expected more." Elena stopped at the base of the throne's steps. She looked up at the massive warlord without fear in her eyes. Around her, 10,000 soldiers waited. One wrong word, one wrong move, and she would die. There would be no rescue, no escape. She was completely alone. She smiled. "Thank you for meeting with me," she said. Her voice was not loud, but somehow it carried through the silent hall. "I am Elena Vasquez, representing the people of Earth. I am very happy to meet you, Warlord Thrax." Thrax stared at her. His generals, standing beside the throne, exchanged confused glances. This was not how prey behaved. This was not how the weak stood before the strong. "You are happy?" Thrax asked. His voice dropped low, dangerous. "You stand in the heart of the Dominion. Your species faces extinction. My armies will burn your world and enslave your children." He leaned closer, his hot breath washing over her. "Why do you smile, little creature?" Elena's smile did not waver. "I smile because I am glad to be here," she said simply. "I smile because that is what humans do when we meet someone new. We hope for friendship. We hope for understanding." She paused. "We hope for peace." For a moment, there was only silence. Then Thrax began to laugh. It was a terrible sound, like stones breaking, like bones snapping. And then his generals laughed. And then the soldiers laughed. 10,000 Varrokian warriors filled the great hall with their mocking laughter. And the sound shook the pillars and echoed off the ceiling. They laughed at the small human woman who stood alone and smiled and spoke of peace. Elena waited. Her smile never faded. She had expected this. She had prepared for this. This was only the beginning. Elena took a moment to steady herself. Her throat burned where Thrax's claws had gripped her. Her heart was beating fast, faster than she wanted to show. But her voice stayed calm. Her hands stayed still. She had practiced this moment 1,000 times in her mind. She had prepared for it in ways the Varrokians could never imagine. "May I ask you a question first?" she said. Thrax's eyes burned with anger and something else. Curiosity, perhaps. He waved one massive hand. "Speak." "You have conquered 43 star systems," Elena said. "You have destroyed species that existed for millions of years. You have never lost a battle." She paused. "And yet, when humanity asked for a meeting, you agreed. When we sent one small ship to your world, you let it land. When I walked into this hall alone and unarmed, you did not simply kill me." She looked around at the thousands of soldiers, at the generals, at the throne of bones. "Why?" Thrax's jaw tightened. "Because I wanted your kind to see what waits for them. I wanted them to understand that resistance is foolish. I wanted to break your spirit before I break your world." "No," Elena said softly. "That is not why." The hall seemed to grow colder. Thrax's generals shifted uncomfortably. "You agreed to meet me," Elena continued, "because somewhere deep in your mind you were curious. You have crushed every enemy you have ever faced. You have burned every world, that stood against you. But you have never met a species that sent a single woman, alone and smiling, to negotiate with the most powerful military force in the galaxy. She took a step toward him. It was a small step, but in that moment, it felt enormous. You wanted to know what we were planning, she said. You wanted to understand the trick. Because you know, better than anyone, that there is always a trick. Thrax said nothing. His claws flexed at his sides. Let me tell you about humanity, Elena said. We are soft, as you said. We break easily. We tire quickly. We live short lives. She nodded slowly. All of this is true, but you missed something important. You studied our bodies. You did not study our minds. She began to walk, slowly, calmly, moving in a small circle so that her words reached every corner of the great hall. Humans are the only species we know of that survived by thinking instead of fighting. We had no claws, so we made knives. We had no armor, so we made shields. We could not run fast, so we made horses carry us. We could not fly, so we built machines that could. Her voice grew stronger. Every problem we faced, we solved with our minds. Every enemy that tried to destroy us, we outlasted with our stubborn refusal to give up. She stopped and turned back to Thrax. When your fleet arrived in our space, we knew we could not beat you in a fair fight. Your ships were larger. Your weapons were stronger. Your soldiers were faster and tougher and more connected. She smiled. So we decided not to fight fair. Thrax's eyes narrowed. What did you do? Elena touched her ear, brushing back her hair to reveal a small device embedded in the skin behind it. It was no larger than a seed, and it glowed with a faint blue light. You told me something interesting a moment ago, she said. You told me that your soldiers are linked, connected, that when you give an order, 10,000 warriors hear it at once, that when you feel anger, they feel it too. She saw the moment when understanding began to dawn in Thrax's eyes. We have been watching your species for 3 years, Elena said. Not with ships, not with soldiers, with scientists, researchers, people who study signals and frequencies and the way minds can be connected across vast distances. She tapped the device behind her ear. We found your network, Warlord. We found the signal that links every Varrokian soldier to every other. The signal that makes you move as one. Thrax's face changed. For the first time since she had met him, Elena saw something other than arrogance in his expression. She saw fear. You could not have, he said. No species has ever discovered the neural link. It is our greatest secret. It is the source of our power. You are right, Elena agreed. It was very difficult. It took our best minds years to find it, years more to understand it. She paused. But we are very stubborn creatures. We do not know how to give up. The device behind her ear pulsed with blue light. It was stronger now, visible even from across the hall. Right now, Elena said, in orbit above this planet, there is a single human ship. It is small. It has no weapons. It carries only one thing, a machine that can broadcast on your exact frequency. A machine that can send a signal into your precious neural link. She spread her hands, and that signal is me. Thrax staggered back a step. It was the first time Elena had seen him move without complete control. Around the hall, soldiers began to shift. Their weapons trembled in their hands. I am connected to every Varrokian in this room, Elena said. Through the device in my ear, through the ship above us, through your own network that you thought no one could find. I'm not just standing in front of you, Warlord. I am inside your minds. Impossible, Thrax whispered. No, Elena said. Just very, very human. She closed her eyes for a moment, and when she opened them, they seemed to glow with the same blue light as the device behind her ear. We did not build warships, she said. We did not train armies. We built a bridge, a connection, a way to show you who we really are. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper, but somehow every creature in the hall heard her clearly. And now, Warlord Thrax, I'm going to show you something that no Varokian has ever seen. The blue light pulsed brighter. I am going to show you what it feels like to be human. And across the Great Hall, 10,000 Varokian warriors suddenly went still. Their eyes widened, their weapons lowered, their mouths opened in silent shock, because for the first time in their lives, they felt something coming through the neural link that was not an order. They felt a memory, a human memory dot, and it was only the beginning. The laughter lasted a long time. It rolled through the Great Hall like a storm, wave after wave of cruel amusement. Elena stood in the center of it all, small and still, her hands folded in front of her. She did not look down. She did not look away. She watched Thrax on his throne of bones and waited for the storm to pass. Slowly, the laughter faded. Thrax raised one massive clawed hand, and the hall went silent. The silence was somehow worse than the laughter. It pressed against Elena's ears like deep water. Thrax rose from his throne. He was even larger standing. His armored body blocked out the light from the great torches behind him, casting Elena in his shadow. Step by step, he descended from the throne, each footfall shaking the floor. His generals moved aside. His soldiers stood straighter. Every eye in the hall watched as the greatest warlord in the galaxy walked toward the small, human woman. He stopped just 2 steps away from her. His head bent down, his burning eyes studying her like she was an insect he was deciding whether to crush. "You speak of peace," Thrax said. His voice was quiet now, but it still filled the hall. "You speak of friendship. You speak of hope." He circled her slowly, his claws clicking on the stone floor. "Do you know what I speak of, little human? I speak of truth." He stopped behind her. Elena did not turn to follow him. She kept her eyes forward, her breathing slow and steady. "I have studied your kind," Thrax continued. "I have collected your kind. They are in my personal chambers, preserved behind glass. Would you like to know what I learned?" He walked around to face her again, bending lower until his snout was close to her face. His breath was hot and smelled of meat. "Humans break easily," he said. "A single blow can shatter your bones. A small wound can spill your life onto the ground. You have no scales to protect you, no claws to fight with, no natural weapons at all." He tapped one claw against his own armored chest. "My kind is born for war. Your kind is born to be food." His generals laughed again, shorter this time, more cruel. "Humans tire quickly," Thrax went on. "You need sleep every day. You need food and water constantly. In the time it takes you to rest, my soldiers can march 100 miles. He straightened up, spreading his arms wide to show the army around them. "These warriors have not slept in 6 days. They do not need to. They are connected to something your species cannot understand." He pointed one claw at his own head. "The Varokian mind is not alone," he said. "We are linked. All of us. When I give an order, 10,000 soldiers hear it in the same moment. When I feel anger, they feel it too. When I decide to kill, their hands move with mine." He smiled, showing all his teeth. "You fight as individuals. We fight as one. That is why you lost your pathetic battle. That is why you will always lose." Elena remained still. Her smile had faded to something smaller, quieter, but it was still there at the corners of her mouth. Thrax tilted his head, studying her again. "And you live such short lives," he said, almost sadly. "What is a human lifetime? 80 years? 90? I have lived for 400 years, little creature. I have conquered systems older than your entire civilization. When I am done with your world, I will live for centuries more. and no one will remember your species existed. He reached out and lifted her chin with one claw, forcing her to look directly into his eyes. The specimens in my collection, he said softly. Do you want to know what sound they made when they died? No, Elena said. Her voice was calm. But I suspect you want to tell me. Something flickered in Thrax's eyes. Surprise, perhaps. Or annoyance. He released her chin and stepped back. They screamed, he said. They all screamed. They begged for mercy that did not exist. They called out to their gods and their families and their homes. He turned to his generals, his voice rising. They screamed beautifully. The generals struck their weapons against the floor in approval. The sound echoed like thunder. Thrax turned back to Elena. But you do not scream, he said. You do not beg. You stand there and smile like a broken thing. He leaned close again. Are you defective, human? Is your mind damaged? Do you not understand that you are going to die? Elena looked up at him. The smile returned to her face, full and warm. I understand perfectly, she said. I know exactly what you can do to me. I know exactly what you have done to others. I know that you could kill me with a single blow, and no one in this room would stop you. Then why do you smile? Thrax demanded. His voice was louder now, touched with frustration. Why do you stand there like you are not afraid? What is wrong with you? Elena took a breath. When she spoke, her voice was still calm, still warm, but there was something new in it. Something strong. In human culture, she said, we smile for many reasons. We smile when we are happy. We smile when we are nervous. We smile when we meet someone new, because we hope they will become a friend. She paused. But there is one smile that is different from the others. Thrax's eyes narrowed. It is the smile we wear when we have already won, Elena said. When the game is already over, and we are simply waiting for everyone else to understand what has happened. The hall went completely silent. Even the humming of the weapons seemed to fade. Thrax's hand shot out, his claws wrapping around Elena's throat. He lifted her off the ground like she weighed nothing. Her feet dangled in the air. His grip was tight enough to bruise, but not tight enough to crush. Not yet. You dare, he growled. You dare to stand in my hole, surrounded by my army, and speak to me of victory? Elena could barely breathe. Her face was turning red, but her eyes stayed fixed on Thrax's face, and even now, even with his claws around her throat, the smile did not completely leave her lips. Kill me if you want, she whispered. It will not change anything. Thrax held her there for a long moment. His claws tightened. Elena's vision began to blur at the edges. Then, slowly, he lowered her back to the ground and released her. Elena coughed, her hand going to her throat. Red marks were already forming on her skin. But she did not fall. She did not run. She stood straight and looked up at the Warlord, who had almost killed her. I will give you one chance, Thrax said. His voice was ice. Explain yourself. Tell me what game you think you are playing. And if your answer does not satisfy me, I will tear you apart piece by piece and send what remains back to your world in a box. Elena rubbed her throat. When she spoke, her voice was rough but steady. I thought you would never ask. Her smile widened, and something in Thrax's chest, something he had not felt in 400 years, began to feel cold. The first memory came like a wave dot. It washed through the neural link, touching every Varrokian mind in the Great Hall. They had spent their entire lives feeling only one thing through the link, the iron will of their commanders, the cold purpose of war, the simple clarity of orders that demanded obedience. This was different. A Varrokian soldier near the back of the hall suddenly saw a small house on a green hill. He saw a woman with gray hair sitting in a garden, watching the sun set. He felt her tiredness in his bones, the ache of a long day spent teaching children. And then he felt her look up at the orange sky and smile, not because anything special had happened, but simply because the world was beautiful, and she was alive to see it. It was Elena's memory. Her mother's garden. The smell of flowers in the evening air. The soldier did not understand. He had never felt anything like this. It was soft. It was warm. It hurt in a way he could not explain. Another memory came. Faster now. A young man running through rain, laughing, his clothes soaked through. A friend beside him, both of them racing toward shelter that they would never reach in time. They did not care. The rain was cold and the thunder was loud, and they were young and alive, and the world was full of possibilities. The Varokian generals felt this memory in their ancient minds. They had lived for centuries. They had forgotten what it felt like to be young. They had forgotten what it felt like to laugh at something as simple as rain. Thrax stood frozen before his throne. His claws were still extended, still ready to kill, but his body would not move. Through the link, he felt what his soldiers felt. He saw what they saw. He saw a hospital room. A woman lying in a bed, her face pale, her hand wrapped around the fingers of a small child. She was dying. Everyone in the room knew it. But she smiled at the child and told her not to be afraid, told her that she would always be with her, told her that love does not end just because a heart stops beating. Thrax felt tears on his face. He did not know what they were. Varokians did not cry. "What is this?" he demanded. His voice cracked. "What are you doing to us?" Elena stood in the center of the hall, her eyes glowing blue, her body perfectly still. When she spoke, her voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "I am showing you the truth," she said. "Not the truth about how weak we are. The truth about how strong we are." More memories came. They came faster and faster, flooding through the link like a river breaking through a dam. A soldier, crawling through mud under enemy fire to reach a wounded friend. A doctor working through the night to save a stranger's child. A firefighter running into a burning building while everyone else ran out. A woman standing in front of a tank, refusing to move, refusing to give up her belief that the world could be better. The Varokian soldiers saw these memories and did not understand them. Why would a creature risk its life for another? Why would someone fight for people they had never met? Why would anyone stand against impossible odds instead of simply accepting defeat? Then came the darker memories. They felt what it was like to lose, to fail, to watch everything you loved burn while you stood helpless. They felt the crushing weight of grief, the cold emptiness of despair. They saw humans at their lowest moments, broken and beaten and lost. And then they saw those same humans stand up again, not because they had to, not because someone ordered them to, but because somewhere inside them, a small voice refused to stay silent. A small light refused to go out. They saw cities rebuilt after wars. They saw families reunited after years apart. They saw people who had every reason to hate each other choose instead to forgive. They saw the stubborn, impossible, beautiful refusal of the human spirit to stay broken. The Varokian soldiers began to lower their weapons, not because they were ordered to. For the first time in their lives, no one was giving orders through the link. They lowered their weapons because their hands were shaking too hard to hold them. Thrax felt all of this. He felt the weight of 8 billion human minds pressing against his own. Not attacking, not invading, just sharing, just showing him what they were. And beneath it all, he heard a message. It came from Elena, but it was not just her voice. It was the voice of every human who had ever lived, and died, and loved, and lost. We do not want war. We have never wanted war, but we will not be conquered. That we are not prey. We are the species that tamed fire when we lived in caves. We are the species that split atoms and touched the stars. We are the species that looked at the impossible and said, why not? We are the species that fell down 1,000 times and stood up. 1001. We smile at death. Because we have met it before. We smile at you because we do not fear you. And you should not fear us either. Because we did not come here to destroy you. We came here to ask you a question. Thrax forced his body to move. He took one step toward Elena, then another. His soldiers watched him with wide, shocked eyes. None of them tried to stop him. None of them could move. He stood before the human woman, this small, fragile creature who had walked alone into the heart of his empire. He looked down at her glowing eyes and felt something he had not felt in 400 years. He felt doubt. You could destroy us, he said. His voice was quiet, broken. This signal, this connection, you could use it to tear our minds apart. You could break the link and leave us helpless. You could order your ships to attack while we stand here frozen. He paused. Why haven't you? Elena's smile was sad and gentle. Because that is not who we are, she said. That is not who we want to be. She reached up and touched his massive hand with her small fingers. Kill me if you want, she said softly. I cannot stop you. The signal will continue either way. My people will know what happened here. They will know what choice you made. Her eyes met his. But you have another choice, Warlord. A different path. One that does not end in death and fire and 1,000 years of war. Thrax's claws trembled. What choice? He asked. Elena smiled. You could say hello. The great hall was silent. 10,000 Varrokian warriors stood like statues, their weapons hanging loose at their sides. Their eyes were distant, still processing the flood of memories that had washed through the neural link. Some of them had fallen to their knees. Others leaned against the great pillars for support. None of them looked like conquering soldiers anymore. They looked like children who had just woken from a long, strange dream. Thrax stood before Elena, his massive body trembling. His claws were still extended, still sharp enough to tear her apart with a single swipe. But they did not move. He could not make them move. For 400 years, he had known exactly who he was. He was Thrax the Sunderer. He was the greatest warlord the galaxy had ever seen. He was the destroyer of worlds, the crusher of empires, the monster that other monsters feared. Now, for the first time in his long life, he did not know what he was. You tricked me, he said. His voice was hollow. Elena shook her head. No, I showed you something real. I showed you what we are. The good parts and the bad parts. The weakness and the strength. She looked up at him with those glowing blue eyes. There was no trick. There was only truth. The truth is that you invaded our minds, Thrax growled. You used our own weapon against us. Yes, Elena agreed. We did, because you gave us no other choice. She paused. You came to our world with a fleet that could burn our cities to ash. You demanded that we kneel or die. You showed us no mercy, no understanding, no willingness to see us as anything other than prey. Her voice hardened slightly. So we adapted. We found another way. We turned your greatest strength into a bridge instead of a wall. Her expression softened again. We did not want to do this, Warlord. We wanted to meet you as equals. We wanted to shake your hand and learn your stories and trade goods and ideas. We wanted to be friends. She gestured around the hall. But you would not let us. So we had to make you listen. Thrax closed his eyes. Through the link, he could still feel echoes of those human memories. The garden at sunset, the rain and the laughter, the mother saying goodbye, the soldier crawling through mud for a wounded friend. They were so different from anything he had ever known. So strange, so beautiful. What do you want from us? he asked. Elena considered the question carefully before answering. We want to live, she said. We want our children to grow up without fear of your ships appearing in our skies. We want to explore the galaxy and learn its secrets and meet all the species that call it home. She smiled. And we want you to be part of that. Not as conquerors. Not as enemies. As partners. Thrax opened his eyes. Partners, he repeated. The word felt strange on his tongue. The Varrokian Dominion does not have partners. We have subjects. We have slaves. We have enemies. Then maybe it is time to try something new, Elena said. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small object. It was round and flat, made of some kind of dark metal. Strange symbols were carved into its surface. This is a communication device, she explained. It is linked to a satellite network that our ships placed around this system. With it, you can speak directly to the leaders of Earth. You can negotiate. You can ask questions. You can learn about us, and we can learn about you. She held it out to him. Take it, she said. Use it, and let us see what we can build together instead of what we would destroy apart. Thrax stared at the small device in her hand. It was so tiny, so simple, and yet it represented something that the Varrokian Dominion had never considered possible. A chance to change. If I refuse, he said slowly, what then? Will you destroy us? Elena lowered her hand slightly. The glow in her eyes began to fade. No, she said. We will leave. We will return to our world and prepare to fight. And one day, maybe tomorrow, maybe in 100 years, your fleets will come for us again. She paused. Many of us will die. Maybe all of us. But we will not kneel. We will not surrender. And some part of what you felt today, some echo of those memories, will stay with you forever. She held out the device again. Or you can take this, and we can try another way. The hall waited. 10,000 soldiers held their breath. The generals watched with wide eyes. The fate of two species hung in the silence between a human woman and a Varrokian warlord. Slowly, carefully, Thrax reached out his massive hand. His claws closed around the small device. Elena smiled. It was not the smile of victory. It was the smile of hope. Thank you, she said softly. Thrax looked at the device in his palm. Then he looked at the woman who had given it to him. This small, fragile creature who had walked alone into the heart of his empire and changed everything. What is your name again? He asked. Elena Vasquez. Elena Vasquez. He turned the name over in his mind. You are a soldier? No, Elena shook her head. I am a teacher. I teach history to children. Thrax blinked. A teacher. They sent a teacher. They asked for volunteers, Elena said. Someone had to go. Someone had to try. She shrugged her small shoulders. I raised my hand. Why? Elena smiled again, and this time it was the brightest smile Thrax had ever seen. Because that is what humans do, she said. We do not ask others to take risks we will not take ourselves. We do not send soldiers to do what a teacher can do with words. Our eyes met his. We believe that any creature, no matter how different, can choose to be better. We believe that enemies can become friends. We believe that the future does not have to repeat the past. She reached out and touched his hand one last time. We believe in second chances, she said. For everyone. Thrax stood there for a long moment. Then, slowly, his massive body bent. His head lowered. And Warlord Thrax the Sunderer, conqueror of 43 star systems, did something he had never done in 400 years. He bowed to another species. My soldiers will stand down, he said. My fleets will hold position. We will talk. He paused. I do not know if my people can become what you hope. I do not know if we can change, but I am willing to try." He straightened and looked at Elena with new eyes. "You have given us a great gift today, Elena Vasquez. You have given us something we never knew we needed." "What is that?" Elena asked. Thrax's mouth curved into something that might, in time, become a smile. "A choice," he said, and in the great hall of the Varokian Dominion, surrounded by warriors who had never known anything but war, a human teacher and an alien warlord shook hands. It was not the end of the story. It was not even the beginning of the end, but it was, perhaps, the end of the beginning. And for now, that was enough.